everyone, it's Missy. So it's 15 weeks after average day to last frost, and this is the unofficial start to fall. So you want to start cleaning stuff out of the garden. With the potatoes, you want to harvest them after the tops have died down. I had to do this weeks ago because my plants were wind whipped and they didn't do well. But for the most part, this is the time of year I do usually dig my potatoes. With the tomatoes and eggplant, you want to pull up any plants that have stopped bearing fruit. You want to pinch off late season blossoms as well, because any kind of blossom that is pollinated, the fruit is not going to develop before the frost comes. And then of course we're saving seeds, which I'm really excited about this year because I did plant some heirloom varieties of tomatoes and melon, so I can save the seeds. Basically, you can save seeds on anything that is not a hybrid crop. So make sure you check your seed packets. If they say hybrid on there, you cannot save the seeds for those plants. For the herbs, you want to start the seeds for growing indoors. Basically, this is the week where you want to start your winter indoor garden. And then make sure in the garden you're still pulling those weeds, especially before they go to seed. The more work you do up front this week on getting your garden weed free, the less weeds you'll have to contend with next year. And then of course you can test your soil for limestone or sulfur deficiency and apply lime to the soil to amend it for next year. The seeds I decided to save are from my French cantaloupe because that was an heirloom melon that I grew. And the seed, all I did was I took and scooped it out, rinsed the pulp off as best I could, and then I put it out on this paper plate to dry. And I'm gonna dry it for about 2 weeks, and then I know the seed is gonna be dry when I bend it in half and it snaps. When it's dry, you just put it into, I'm gonna use a jar. You could also stick it into like an envelope, but I'm thinking if I put it in a jar, that would help decrease the chance of the humidity getting into the seed, and it would help the seed last longer. And then the other heirloom variety of crop that I grew in my garden was Amish paste tomatoes. And to save those seeds, I took and cut the tomato open and I squeezed the seeds and the pulp into the jar. And then I added an equal amount of water. As you can see, I loosely covered the top of the jar with cheesecloth, and that is just to prevent like insects getting in there. But what the seeds should be doing is fermenting, and that will help kind of kill off the diseases and so forth associated with the seed. And I hope that by having them in water, the seeds, if they float, I know that they're not going to germinate well, so I can take those out and then leave the ones that have sunk to the bottom. But I'm going to leave the tomato seeds in this jar for 2 to 5 days. What I'm looking for is white mold to be growing on top of the jar. I know it sounds kind of gross, but that's how I know that the fermentation process has happened. And then I'm also stirring the jar once each day just to make sure that everything is well incorporated in the jar. And yeah, and once that's all done, I'll drain the seeds off, rinse them off, and dry them, and then store them in a jar for use in next year's garden. Another thing I'm starting this week is my indoor winter garden. Now, when I plant my garden indoors, I usually focus on herbs and lettuce and tomatoes and some mini bell peppers, stuff that I like buying fresh and having like a fresh salad. And so I know a lot of you have maybe seen my other videos where I have my AeroGarden. So I have an AeroGarden Bounty, which is a 9-pod model. So it's like one of the largest ones that you can get for a countertop. And so I bought my heirloom salad greens mixture. They had it on sale, so I purchased that for my AeroGarden. I also purchased a Grow Anything kit because I like to grow some peas. Now these are shelling peas and are called Tom Thumb. These peas are really small and are really good in an AeroGarden because they don't get the height, but they do produce peas very well. So I have that. My salad seeds are already in that mixture, but then I also have a Miracle-Gro 12 unit. that grows 4 larger plants, and I've done videos on that as well. So if you put in MG12 in the search on my channel, you will probably find where I grew Tiny Tim tomatoes. Now this is an heirloom variety. It's a cherry tomato, but it grows only about 1.5 feet tall, and it's a very good producer of cherry tomatoes. I have videos on how that worked. It worked out great, and I hope to do it again this winter. A few new items though that I have chosen to try is a self-watering fabric garden pot. Now I tried potato bags with my potatoes and they didn't work out too well. And I think it's because they were too dry. Our house gets very, very dry in the winter, and I'm not very good at watering stuff or keeping stuff watered indoors. Whereas this is self-watering, and what they do is you have like this little clay system where you fill it with water, and the water will easily seep out to water the plant. And all I have to do is take that plug, and every time that I see I need to add water, just pour some in there and it's good to go. So I don't have to worry about overwatering, underwatering, etc. I also purchased a good quality potting mix, potting soil. The soil I used the last time was a very cheap sandy grade. There wasn't much to it. So I actually went and invested, now that there's clearance sales going on, I invested in some nice potting mix with fertilizer, and hopefully I will be able to use that to grow some potatoes indoors. And then I had and then there's also when I bought a rebate for this if you buy it at Walmart. I think it's like $10 off. So I actually picked up 2 of these. And then I had another rebate, $10 off for this windowsill tomato planter. Now this is supposed to be a complete mason jar grow kit. Again, it would be a cherry tomato variety. You're planting in this mason jar and hopefully you're getting some tomatoes. Usually when they put these tomatoes, like with the AeroGarden and so forth, it's this Tiny Tim variety. I'm hoping that's the case with this one. But I just got it because of the rebate, and I kind of wanted to try it, see how well it works growing items in mason jars, because I do see that on other people's channels. So that is my winter garden. This is the week I'm gonna set everything up, get it going. I know it's hard to think about growing more tomatoes when you're busy harvesting them in the outdoor garden, but tomatoes do take a good time to produce, so I'm hoping I'll have fresh tomatoes by January, in the middle of winter, when I will definitely be enjoying fresh food for a change instead of my canned goods. And just to give you an update out in the garden, you can see that the oats are growing right along and are looking really good. And as for the tomatoes, as soon as we're done picking the rest of these, which will be pretty soon, we'll be pulling out the vines so that way we can get the soil prepared for winter. And also we're just focused this week on getting these weeds pulled, because as you can see the seeds are forming, and if you don't get them pulled, that's just going to be more weeds that you're going to have to pick out of your garden next year. So if you have any questions, leave a comment below. Otherwise, thanks for watching everyone. Bye!